Hey parents, how would you like a show that makes bedtime, bath time, mealtime, and break time more fun for your kids? Then check out Who Smarted, the podcast that turns everyday moments into awesome learning adventures for kids aged 7 to 11, and grown-ups too. But don't just take my word for it. Here's what Mom Jenny says.
I love Who Smarted because it makes learning fun for my kids. And I love it too. We listen together on car rides, and it sparks the best conversations. It's the perfect way to make the most of our time in the car and connect as a family. Who Smarted is the podcast my kids ask for every single car ride.
With fun, fast-paced episodes on science, history, and so much more, Who Smarted makes learning exciting for the whole family. We invite you to listen now for free wherever you get your podcasts. That's Who Smarted, wherever you get your podcasts.
Who Smarted?
As absolutely counterintuitive as this sounds, the goal is always to find situations where the worry shows up so you can practice handling it when it does. And the more that we tell kids and the more that we tell parents, the goal is to prevent the worry from showing up. The goal is to find a thing, a place, a bed, a video game. The more we give people that message, the goal is to get rid of than the worse that kids get. Because you're just going to keep adding to the list. And pretty soon we've got kids that won't do anything because they're so afraid of feeling these sensations.
Welcome to Season 7 of Flusterclux with Lynn Lyons, where we'll talk about managing anxiety and all the other emotions too. We tackle the serious stuff without being too serious. I'm your co-host Robin, I'm Lynn's sister-in-law, and I'm here to ask your questions.
And I'm Lynn Lyons. I'm an anxiety expert, speaker, mom, and author. I've been a therapist for 35 years. Parenting can be a flusterclux, and I'm here to help you find your way. I'll tell you what to do and what to say. Hi, Ed.
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
I'm pretty good. The sun is shining. The snow is melting. It looks like it might be springtime.
It's great down here, yeah.
It's pretty cold here. It's still in the 30s.
All right, we're hitting the 50s for sure today.
Oh, all right. Well, good for you.
Yes.
Do you remember, I remember being in college, and I went to college in Massachusetts where it was cold. But when the temperature would hit like 50, everybody came out in shorts and t-shirts.
Yes.
And it was like this huge celebration.
Yes. And we were down in the Bahamas once, and there was a woman, and she was bundled. You'd think it was like 40 degrees outside, and it was unseasonably 72.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
It's all relative. It is. Yes. And summer will come. I always joke that living in New Hampshire, the worst thing would be to go into a coma in April and come out of your coma in November. And even if you were totally psyched that you came out of the coma, when they told you the date, you would be like, what? You would be glad you came out of the coma and then just totally pissed that it was November.
Your timing was terrible.
Yeah, your timing was terrible. Yeah.
The accident was the worst, but your timing was a close second.
Well, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics that deserves revisiting on a regular basis, which is elimination strategies. And whenever I'm thinking about what we're going to talk about, we have a list of topics and we get listener questions, but oftentimes something will bump to the top of the list because I've just hit it head on or had an experience with it, or I've been reminded of it. And elimination strategies is one of those things that bump to the top of the list because I have just been hearing a lot from other therapists and families. It's probably because I've been doing a fair amount of consultations recently, which means that I'm meeting people for the first time. And man, those elimination strategies still are so prevalent and so much a part of school plans and even professional help and what families do. So I think it's important to talk about it again, because I'm sure I've talked about it before.
And remind people what an elimination strategy would be defined as.
Yeah. So elimination strategies are anything that you do that is designed to get rid of the symptoms or get rid of the discomfort that comes with anxiety. Oftentimes we talk about safety behaviors or accommodations, very similar. Elimination strategies is just the phrase that I use because they are very, very common and very often presented in a way that says, these are good things for you to do if you feel anxious, or these are the things you should do if your child is anxious. And I'll differentiate because sometimes it's okay to use them or sometimes it is helpful to use them. But the way that they are often taught to families or presented to kids in therapy is that this is what you do in order to feel better or to get rid of your worry. And that is just not the path we want to go down.
And what would one of those things be?
So a very common elimination strategy is distraction. And I'll say to kids, what are the most common things that you learn in your therapy or you're learning about handling your worry or handling your anxiety? What's the most common thing that you use? And they will say breathing and distraction. Those are the top two things that I hear all the time. And I'll talk about breathing in a minute. Distraction is the thought pops up. Right there it is. The worried thought pops up or the symptom pops up. Oh, my heart is racing a little or my tummy hurts. And the goal becomes, how do we get rid of this thought or feeling or symptom? And so we teach kids use distraction.
You do not.
I do not. So listen to music or get on your phone or watch a funny video. Somehow get out of this, get away from it. Now, is it a problem if you are a worrier to look at a funny video? No, it is not a problem to look at a funny video. Is it a problem if you are stuck and you are ruminating about something and your brain is just going over it and over it? Is it a problem to say, I need to switch channels or I need to give my brain something else to pay attention to? That is not a problem at all. But that's why I call that shifting or pivoting instead of distraction. Because what distraction says is, I can't handle these thoughts. I can't handle these feelings. I've got to do something to get rid of them. And so then elimination strategies also, right? We get into the teenage years. Alcohol is a really good elimination strategy. Pot is a really good elimination strategy for some kids, not for all kids, because it can make you think and make you paranoid. So it doesn't work as well as alcohol works for a socially anxious teenager. And what also brings this to the front of my brain and why I want to talk about it is because now that more and more schools are saying, let's get rid of phones bell to bell, families, providers are going to start to advocate that the phone is necessary in school because it's a necessary distraction. So when my child starts to get anxious, the only thing that makes them feel better is if they can watch a YouTube video, or the only thing that can make them feel better is if they can listen to music. Now, anxious parents also want kids to have their phones because they want to be able to communicate with them during the day, which is also a problem, but that's a separate thing. So whenever we put something in place that says the way we're going to manage your worry is to distract you away from it, or the way we're going to manage your worry is to try and eliminate it, then I have a beef with it.
And it's also like trying to hold back a giant wave with a plastic spoon.
Correct. I mean, if we use that analogy, then the kid's like, well, I need more and more and more and more and more plastic spoons. Kids have told me the only time I don't feel anxious is when I'm playing video games, which means that they are playing video games a lot. The only time I don't feel anxious is when I have this device, and it might be an electronic device, or the only time I don't feel anxious is when I have this thing, or I take this thing, or I do this thing so that I can get away from my feelings, that I can get away from these sensations. And mainly for anxious kids, it's getting away from those distressing thoughts, those intrusive thoughts.
And they're inherently ascribing a lot of power and value to something other than themselves.
Exactly.
Such as a video game, and not viewing themselves as the path by which they can maybe feel better in the course of a day, a month, a year.
Right, exactly. And the big goal, of course, is that we want experiential learning. So we want you to hang out with the uncomfortable thought or feeling or sensation so that you can get through it. And if we prevent that from happening by inserting something else that is going to help you distract or is going to work as a placebo that you're going to get rid of these thoughts or feelings, it takes away the really important part of the process, which is I can tolerate this thought or feeling, or this thought is meaningless. Like if you have intrusive thoughts from OCD, this is a meaningless thought. Say you had a child who had OCD, so you have intrusive thoughts. And intrusive thoughts are by their nature disturbing. That's why they're intrusive thoughts. So you might have an intrusive thought that is, I might hurt my cat, or I might say something that I shouldn't say during class, or I might injure myself in some way. Those are disturbing thoughts. And then we say to a child, when you have this disturbing thought, it is very important for you to distract yourself, to get away from that thought, to stop that thought. And the saying I use all the time, I didn't come up with it, it's been around for a really long time, is what you resist persists. And so when you try and get rid of those thoughts, when you say, I shouldn't have that thought, that's a bad thought to have. Oh no, what does that mean about me? I've got to play a video game, or I've got to go and get my stress ball, or I've got to do this thing. It's giving validity to this thought that we really want to make meaningless. We really want to say, it's okay if you have that thought. It's meaningless. This is what our brains do. And how are you going to tolerate that thought, feeling, sensation, and then pivot and shift and get back to your life?
Yes. And children don't have to feel a sense of failure, which they sometimes do if those thoughts keep coming and coming and coming.
Right. That there's something wrong with me, that I shouldn't be having these thoughts. That's exactly right.
You talk a lot about building muscle, in quotes, and how a child can become more resilient. Leaning to a video game, even as well-intentioned as it is, does not provide the child with building any muscle or resilience to this issue that's very difficult for them.
Yep. It becomes like safety crutches where I cannot do this thing unless I have this safety crutch. Or if we're talking more specifically about elimination strategies, I cannot tolerate this thought, feeling, and sensation. And so I have to go to something that will get rid of it. One of the things I've been seeing recently is it's like a bodysuit that you put on that's supposed to regulate your nervous system.
Is it fashionable?
No. And it has a hood. Probably people have seen them advertised on Instagram. They say it's good for ADHD and it's good for anxiety. It regulates your nervous system. It's like a giant onesie with a hood.
Okay.
And you have to get into the onesie. When they're advertising it, they show you like curled up on the couch or in your bed. And it's basically saying, if I'm having any of these thoughts or feelings or sensations, I can't be in the world. I have to retreat. A lot of the elimination strategies that I'm hearing currently that are being marketed have a lot to do with being cozy.
Well, one of the things that you talk about is pulling out the anxiety and bossing it around and even mocking it a little bit.
Yep.
And requiring this wearable chamber that prevents you from any sensory experiences is the opposite of viewing it as something that you have the power over.
Right. And I think that one place where they really get it right is that if you are taking a yoga class, because yoga comes from a tradition of how do we tolerate? And when you're in yoga, they talk about using the breath to manage sensations. Stay with your breath, hold the pose, be uncomfortable and use your breath to modulate that. And what I hear often is we're going to do these things, including breathing, by the way, or wearing the onesie or squeezing your stress ball or whatever to get rid of the sensations rather than to help you move through them. So to go back to the breath, because people will say like, but breathing is so good. And I say this all the time. I totally support breathing. The neuroscience is clear about breathing, is that we use the breath to center ourselves. We use the breath to reboot your nervous system. We use the breath so that we can stay in the situation. And Ron Siegel, who's a great mindfulness anxiety guy that I know out of Harvard, he talks about taking mindfulness into the fire. An elimination strategy is, how do I get out of this? How do I eliminate this? How do I avoid? How do I feel better? And what I am saying is like yoga says, no, we're going to step in. True mindfulness says we're going to step in, using your breath to reboot so that you can step in. And I am just seeing so many kids being taught, how do I use these strategies so that I can get out? How can I use them to escape? And it's backfiring because they don't really work. They don't teach you what you need to learn, which is, how do I tolerate this?
There's a lack of agency inherent in saying, I need X or Y to manage these emotions this moment.
Yep. A lot of things become placebos because you are using these elimination strategies and they work in the short term, because if you can get out, if you're feeling really anxious and your mom says, okay, go play Fortnite, and you feel better because you're distracted by Fortnite and you're not dealing with what you have to deal with, well, that just reinforces, like, this is what I need to do. I need to get out of this. And what happens is that you need it more and more. So that's how it becomes, you've got kids that they don't want to go to school because school is really stressful or it makes them feel anxious. And so then they just want to stay home all day. And then we get school avoidance. I mean, the problem with elimination strategies is that in the short term, they work really, really well.
Right.
And in the long term, they make the problem worse. It's just like if you're procrastinating something, people who procrastinate, they're like, I'm just going to put it out of my mind. I have this project I have to do. And in the short term, you get some relief from what you have to do. But in the long term, anybody who procrastinates will tell you that over time, your stress just builds and builds and builds because now you've avoided.
And the project does not go away. It's still there.
Right. And then it even comes back more powerfully because now you've got less time to do the project. And that's what happens with worry and anxiety, is the more we give the message to kids that this is something to get rid of, this is something to eliminate, the more powerful it gets. Emotions, sensations, physical symptoms when it comes to anxiety are not things that we want to avoid or eliminate.
We'll take a quick break. Be right back.
I've got a vacation planned. And guess what? On the top of my list is going and getting one of Quince's premium luggage options and stylish tote bags for my next trip. And the best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. When I was on my last trip, I wore this great silk blouse that I got at Quince. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman, passes the savings right on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I love that. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/fluster for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/fluster to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/fluster. So recently I was down at a big mental health conference and got to listen to Jon Kabat-Zinn talk about the value of meditation right there in front of me. I came home and I immediately watched his class on meditation. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's on Masterclass. Who doesn't want to listen to Esther Perel talk about relationships, Michael Lewis about how to tell a great story? There are classes that deal with empathy, that talk about cooking. I don't even like to cook, but it's just so interesting to hear people talk about what they do so well. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. It's the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 of the world's best. And just for $10 a month, billed annually, a membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. You can access Masterclass on your phone, your computer, your smart TV, or even in audio mode. So if you travel, you can take it with you. You can learn on the go. I highly recommend getting Masterclass. The classes really make a difference. 88% of members feel that Masterclass has made a positive impact on their lives. It's made an impact on mine. I mean, listening to Jon Kabat-Zinn, listening to Joan Benoit Samuelson talk about running. I mean, these are people who just do it right. Our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/fluster. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/fluster. Masterclass headspace.com/fluster.
On average, you'll have to wait 31 days to see an OBGYN. And if you're dealing with an infection or outbreak, you know you need care fast. That's where WISP comes in. Connect with a U.S. licensed provider online and pick up safe, effective treatment at your local pharmacy that same day. Plus, get birth control and more delivered in all 50 states. Take control with comprehensive sexual and reproductive care, all from your phone. WISP. That's hellowisp.com. The waiting room can wait.
Okay, we're back.
Years ago, I used to be in some singing programs. There was probably 20 of us, and we would do small groups. And we had this performance. And there was one guy who, do you remember the little spray thing called Banaka?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this guy had decided in his mind at some point, I cannot sing unless I am well Banaka'd. So he's in this group that's about to go on, and there's, like 250 people in the audience. He gets his Banaka, he sprays it, it's empty.
Oh my gosh.
He sprints out of the building and runs down Huntington Avenue. And he was in the next group. So they just had to change it. And they were like, okay, Sally and Marianne, you're on.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's nervous prior to going on stage, but that was a great example of where this crutch, if you will, or whatever word you would want to use, had so much power over him that even though it was effectively immaterial in whether he sang well or not, it forced him in a way to act in a crazy manner and run out of the building when he was about to participate on a performance.
Yeah, it's not rational.
What are some of the experiences you've had
with kids
in your office with kids who have benefited from making a shift away from the things we've been discussing?
Yeah. So a way that it will typically show up, and again, it's oftentimes like people will come to me and maybe they've been seeing another therapist or they've been working with somebody, or maybe the parents have just been trying to figure it out on their own. And unknowingly, they have put in place all of these elimination strategies. So even sometimes the written plan for the school is when this child is upset or when they're anxious, we will allow them to use their Banaka, for example, although I've never seen that on a plan, but I'm sure maybe in 1972 that was written in. But it's this idea that then I'm going to go and use this thing that's going to help me get rid of these feelings. One of the ones I hear a lot now, and people are probably going to roll their eyes, but go ahead, roll away, is that this whole thing about holding ice cubes drives me crazy. There's probably some evidence that if you're anxious and you hold ice cubes, it does something to distract you. They also talk about splashing cold water on your face, which is no great scientific breakthrough, right? Haven't you ever been upset about something and you go into the bathroom and you look in the mirror and you go like, get your act together, and you splash water in your face? It's a way of interrupting the pattern. I get that. If we said to kids, if you're feeling anxious, I want you to go into the bathroom at school, take a moment, take some of your breaths to reset your system, go ahead and even splash some water on your face, and then go back into the situation. You're going to take a break. You're going to reboot. Sometimes I have kids do jumping jacks. Get your body moving. Go back into the situation. But that's not the way it's talked about. It's given this real power, like you say, like almost this magic. Like if you're really anxious, hold ice cubes, and that will get rid of your worry. And the shift that I want to make is that it's okay if the worry shows up. I don't want you to be afraid of its appearance, because that's what makes this thing a disorder, is that you start worrying about getting worried, get anxious about getting anxious. It's okay if it shows up. And there are things you can do to reboot. There are things that you can do. You take a little break, you go for a walk, right? Okay. And then you go back into the situation, because the goal is always, as absolutely counterintuitive as this sounds, the goal is always to find situations where the worry shows up so you can practice handling it when it does. And the more that we tell kids and the more that we tell parents, the goal is to prevent the worry from showing up. The goal is to find a thing, a place, a bed, a video game, a phone, a song, an ice cube, a stuffy the more we give people that message, the goal is to get rid of, then the worse that kids get. Because you're just going to keep adding to the list. And pretty soon we've got kids that won't do anything because they're so afraid of feeling these sensations.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you've discussed many times, it is an impossible task to eliminate worry. It's part of the human condition. It's natural. It has even practical applications in outrunning tigers. And
it's a system that's in place to keep us alive. And so we're not getting rid of it. Yeah. And what happens is that when you depend on that strategy, which is a very natural strategy, that's when we see people really checked out from life because they're saying, I can't do this, I can't do that. I mean, another example would be their child is having difficulty being in school. So they get them to school. That's really hard. And then the child starts texting from school. Like, you need to pick me up, you need to pick me up, you need to pick me up. And oftentimes, I mean, this is heartbreaking for parents. They're not sure what to do. And they will text back to their child, I will pick you up at 12. And what very often happens, so say they texted their parents at 10:30 and said, you need to come get me. And the parent says, I'll come get you at 12. From 10:30 to 12, that kid is doing okay. Because they know that they have an escape strategy. They know that they're going to get rid of. They know that they have a way out of this. And so the more that we tell kids, the solution is to get rid of. The solution is to escape. I hear this a lot now. The word cozy is very popular. Like, I have to feel cozy. So the way I deal with my anxiety is that I create coziness in my house. Now, nobody's against cozy. Who's against cozy? We all love cozy. But what that means is that I can't step into uncertainty or discomfort. Cozy is my go-to.
Mm-hmm. Well, the unknown is inherently uncozy.
Correct.
A new job, a new summer camp.
Yeah. A difficult conversation.
Yeah.
An assignment that's tricky. A project that you have to do that, you don't like the kids in your group. All of those things are opportunities for practice. Human beings love this. We love superstitions. We love carrying around the magic rock. We love saying the incantation. Throughout human history, human beings have found a way to try and control our uncertain world. It just shouldn't be a part of anxiety treatment. You can have support. Say you had a little kid who was really working on their anxiety, and they said, you know what? When I go to second grade, if I can carry my little stuffy in my pocket, that just makes me feel like I can do it. I'm going to say, go ahead. That's one way. But if they say, I've learned that my stuffy is necessary to keep me from feeling anxious and I have to have my stuffy, then that becomes like the Banaka, the guy you're talking about running down Huntington Avenue. So there are ways that we learn to cope. There are ways that we learn to manage, that we support. Our breathing supports us so that we can step in. But it's the language of elimination that is so problematic right now.
We'll take another quick break. And when we come back, maybe you can talk about what parents might get as unpleasant feedback when they initiate moving away from some of these coping strategies and eliminations.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Spring is here, and you can now get almost anything you need for your sunny days delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get a chicken parmesan delivered. A cabana? That's a no. But a banana? That's a yes. A nice tan? Sorry, nope. But a box fan? Happily, yes. A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
To the salon owners, the spa experts, the med spa mavens, those who make every cut, every massage, every facial feel like a small miracle. At Boulevard, they see you. That's why they built the first and only client experience platform that combines online scheduling, marketing, messaging, and payments, and works as beautifully as you do. See for yourself at joinblvd.com/Spotify. Boulevard, software for self-care businesses.
Okay, so now back to the show. Okay, so you said the phrase that I had forgotten to say, but I think is really, a lot of these are called coping strategies. And that's exactly what they're called. So when you said coping strategies, that's the way they get legitimacy. So kids say, oh, these are my coping strategies. And that's why I started calling them elimination strategies. So breathing is my coping strategy, or holding ice cubes in my hands. That's my coping strategy.
So if there's a parent listening right now who has a child who's struggling with anxiety and they present the child with a new way of thinking about this, in all likelihood, the child is not going to be thrilled and buy in
Yes.
from moment one. So how would you advise a parent in that respect, and what pep talk could you give them?
Yeah, I just gave some parents this pep talk yesterday. When you remove the elimination strategies, when you remove these coping strategies, that means that you're doing what you should be doing. You're giving your child practice managing the worry, but they're not going to be happy. Just like your singing friend. Take away the banaka, he's going to freak out. If we look at substances, it's the same thing. If you've got somebody who really depends on their cigarette to calm them down, or really depends on their vape, then when you take it away, they feel really agitated. When you're trying to interrupt these patterns, one is that it is good to explain to them the rationale behind it. And even little kids can understand this. So I want you to be able to change your relationship with Joe, your worry when it shows up. And if we use these things, we're really trying to get rid of Joe. And the point isn't to get rid of Joe. The point is to be more bored or expect Joe to show up. So you explain that to kids. Even if you explain it, even if they agree to it, even if they say to you, that sounds like a great idea, Dad, when it happens, they are not going to go quietly. So it's the poodle begging at the dinner table. If you decide that you are going to not continue to give it the little snacks because your vet's like, hey, your poodle's getting too obese here, the poodle doesn't go, okay, I won't beg. The poodle will bark more. The poodle will paw at your leg more. So that's called an extinction burst. That's the term for it. I call an extinction explosion. When you change the rules of the game, the worry, and your child, if your child is in the cult with the worry, is going to push back. You've got to tolerate that. You've got to validate. You've got to say, I get this is hard. I love you. I know this is hard, but I'm not working for your anxiety or your worry. What your worry wants, what you want, is to get rid of these feelings and thoughts and sensations. And even though that feels like a good idea at the time, it's not going to work out. So we are going to learn how to manage them when they show up. We're going to handle them when they show up. We're even going to almost look forward to them showing up. I was just talking to a woman who I hadn't seen for many, many years, but she just needed a little professional guidance. And she's got this supervisor who's really sounds pretty tough, like goes after her and makes her feel badly about herself. Like if she offers an idea, the supervisor might sarcastically say like, well, really, that's the best you could come up with? Like just like bad. And the problem wasn't that she couldn't handle the supervisor rationally. It's that she didn't like her emotional response to it, because sometimes she would get really tearful. So we talked about how she was going to respond differently to her supervisor, rather than saying, she shouldn't talk to me that way. Oh my gosh, I feel so embarrassed. My face is getting red. I made it into a game with her. We talked about looking forward to this supervisor doing these things so that she could practice handling it differently. And even, making a game with her husband that when she went home, she could be like, oh my gosh, Amanda said this. And then, or she gets to eat a Hershey's Kiss on the way home or something, whatever game. The goal is, rather than trying to push back, rather than trying to eliminate, rather than trying to say, I shouldn't feel this way, I need something to get out of this. We want kids to understand the goal is to practice managing it when it shows up.
Mm-hmm. As you've stated before many times, children, even young ones, are very open to having conversations about the plan and the strategy for addressing their anxiety that you're both trying to work through. Front loading is what you call it.
Yeah.
And how receptive they can be, and even getting them involved in the conversation and the path. Maybe saying, well, that inclination when you go to try and play Fortnite to distract yourself, how about we're going to try 5 minutes of pause just for the first day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you don't talk to your kids about it, if they don't understand the rationale behind this, then it just feels like you're being mean. They can't make any sense of it, particularly if you've been buying into it all this time. So say there is this, magic stuffy that takes your worry away. And then somebody's listening, they go, oh God, we've been giving her a magic stuffy to take her worry away. Lynn is saying, don't do that. So then you say to your kid, we're taking your stuffy away because that's not helping. Well, they need more information than that. You say, look, you've been giving all your power to the stuffy. And we all agreed that the stuffy is what's going to help you manage worry. We don't want to give the power to the stuffy. So we're going to practice managing worry rather than working so hard to get rid of it, or rather than making a stuffy magic. I mean, one of the things I talk about all the time with school nurses is that you can't have your magic saltines. The kids come down that are worried. You take their temperature, you give them the magic saltines. That's an elimination strategy. If you eat this saltine, it will get rid of your worry. Worry is highly, highly suggestible. Highly, highly suggestible. So when we promote this idea that things outside of ourselves are necessary in order to manage our thoughts and feelings and sensations, we're doing the disorder. And it's a hard shift to make. And it's a very this is the reason why we're talking about this. It is so common. I hear it all the time, but I really got blasted with it in the last few days. Yeah. You're aiding the disorder. You're doing the disorder if you look outside yourself for something to get rid of it. Because it is totally fine. If a kid said to me, you know what, I've been working really hard going into school. And what really helps is before I walk in the door, I sit in the parking lot, I sit in the counselor's office for a moment and I just take 10 of those breaths. And I just say to myself, okay, this is going to be hard, but I can handle it. And then I step into class. That's using it as an aid to get you in. And that's different than an aid to get you out or an aid to eliminate. So it's a subtle difference, but it's really, really a key difference. We're not getting rid of anything. What you resist persists.
And it also is free of any props. You don't need ice. You don't need Banaka.
Yeah. You don't need a vape. You don't need a video game. You don't need a cell phone. Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time. People coming up with these really pretty complicated or pretty involved rituals or objects or things that they need in order to get them from point A to point B. And again, human beings love to do that. And I'm not saying that ritual isn't a good thing. Like if you're a singer and when you're going on to perform, I'm sure there are rituals you do ahead of time to prepare your voice and to get ready for a performance. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those things that are billed, sold, marketed as ways to get rid of. It's not working, everybody. If stress balls worked, I'd be all in. I'd open a stress ball company. I would stop doing all this talking and I would just produce stress balls. That's what I would do. I would team up with Ben and Jerry and we would make Ben and Jerry stress balls.
Are they in the plastics business presently that I'm not aware of?
Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast helpful, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find this information.
And if you'd like to dig deeper on any of these topics, we have specialized playlists on our Spotify profile, and the link is in the show notes. Topics like teens, depression, and OCD. Bye, Lynn.
Bye, Robin.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. Did you know the first oil well was drilled almost 1,700 years ago? The first American well was drilled in Pennsylvania in 1859, and the Texas oil boom began in 1901. when the Lucas Gusher produced an astonishing geyser that flowed for 9 days. This oil boom helped launch the widespread use of the automobile and grease the wheels of the modern machine age. Today, the U.S. is the world's top producer of oil and gas, supporting 11 million jobs and contributing $2 trillion to the American economy. Look around, and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our modern lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit ittakes.energy.com.